Hello and welcome to Newsround as we bounce around our emerging markets of South Asia, Arabia and Africa. I'm Alan Peaford. This week, our main focus is on MRO, maintenance, repair and overhaul. So quite rightly, I'm joined in the studio by Chuck Grieve, our MRO specialist, and we're going to be hearing about new moves in Africa, the Middle East and India as we get a report from Neelam Matthews. And in the airport world, Robin Rabec reports from Cape Town on the international ambitions of South Africa's second largest hub. We will also be getting news headlines from our central news desk in the UK with Angie B. And that's all to come after this short message from our sponsors.
Hello, welcome back. And here is this week's industry news from our emerging markets. Russia has hinted that the UAE and India could be potential customers or even partners in the manufacture of its new fifth-generation fighter jet. This is dubbed the Checkmate and was unveiled at the MAX 2021 air show in Moscow, where it was presented to President Putin himself. John Lake, TATV's defence editor, cast some doubts on the likelihood of the new light tactical aircraft, the Sukhoi T-75, actually finding its way to the Gulf.
The United Aircraft Corporation, which is Sukhoi's parent company, hinted at 4 potential customers: Argentina, Vietnam, India and the UAE, though it remains unclear whether any of these nations has actually expressed any interest in the new fighter, or whether they're just sales prospects, or hopes, or in some cases, Russian mischief making.
You can learn more about the new fighter in our Defence Monthly Show on the Times Aerospace YouTube channel. Meanwhile, the first of the 3 Airbus A220s for Air Austral has been delivered from the A220 final assembly line in Mirabel, Canada. This allowed Air Austral to become the first French A220 operator, even beating Air France. The second and third aircraft are expected to join the Air Austral fleet in the coming days. Air Austral is a French airline based on La Réunion Island. Qatar and Turkey have signed a technical agreement which will allow Doha to station a mixed fleet of up to 36 fighters, helicopters and support aircraft at the Turkish Air Force 3rd Main Jet Base at Konya in central Anatolia. The agreement is not strictly limited to training and also provides for Qatari aircraft to be allowed to carry Turkish personnel, ammunition and humanitarian aid inside and outside Turkey if requested. 1 Turkish pilot must be present in the aircraft according to the agreement. The agreement will require the approval of the French government before French manufactured aircraft such as the Rafale can be based in a third country. Indian billionaire Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's plan to launch an ultra-low-cost airline could give Boeing a chance to regain lost ground in India after the collapse of one of its biggest customers, Jet Airways, 2 years ago. Industry executives say that Jhunjhunwala, known for his successful stock investments, plans to team up with former CEOs of Indigo, the country's biggest carrier, and Jet Airways. Together, they plan to tap into the demand for domestic air travel. Nitin Sarin, managing partner at law firm Sarin & Co., which advises lessors and airlines, said that this is a great opportunity for Boeing to step in and up their game. He pointed out that Boeing doesn't have another major operator for the 737 in India, apart from SpiceJet. The world's largest charter fleet operator of the Boeing business jet, Abu Dhabi's Royal Jet, has launched Royal Jet Bermuda under a Bermuda Air Operators Certificate. The new operation will allow Royal Jet to extend its BBJ charter operations. It has kicked off with a management and charter contract with a European owner. CEO Rob de Castri described the move as historic. Africa's largest cargo operator, Kenya's Astral Aviation, is planning to open a new hub in Lomé, Togo. This will form part of its bid to target the West African cargo market. The airline CEO, Sanjeev Gadia, speaking at Routes Online, said that 70% of Astral's future expansion would be intra-African. He also vowed to extend Astral's network in southern Africa. IATA has called on governments to take urgent action to address the high cost of COVID-19 testing. The association has urged flexibility in permitting the use of cost-effective antigen tests as an alternative to more expensive PCR testing. According According to IATA's most recent survey, 86% of travellers are willing to get tested, but 70% also believe that the cost of testing is a significant barrier to travel. 78% believe that governments should bear the cost of mandatory testing. Rwanda and Qatar Airways have agreed an interlining deal as part of their new partnership. This will give customers access to over 160 destinations across their combined networks. Akbar Al-Bakr, chief executive of the Qatar Airways Group, said that Africa is a hugely important market. He said that the partnership will help support the recovery of international air travel. SITA has announced the deployment of a new technology that offers passengers enhanced check-in and bag drop services with Ethiopian Airlines at Addis Ababa International Airport. The SITA Smart Path drop and fly baggage solution has been introduced to the newly extended check-in area for Ethiopian Airlines. They can go straight to the baggage drop area to check in their bags quickly and easily, avoiding long lines and reducing congestion. And this is vital now as social distancing remains a top priority. And that's it from here, Alan. So back to you.
Thanks, Angie. It was great to have you with us in Ella's absence. And also, of course, to you, Chuck. Welcome to joining us in the studio. Now, we talked last month about West Africa and its growing determination to step up MRO businesses there. And I gather there's some positive news.
Yes, thanks, Alan. Yes, there has been some positive news. It's an interesting one coming out of Nigeria. We know that there's an awful lot of toing and froing between the different West African countries in terms of who wants to be the regional hub for MRO. And Nigeria, being the biggest economy in Africa and obviously the main player in West Africa, has a head start in that direction. Well, just last month, the Senate Committee on Aviation in Nigeria called a meeting of the airline operators because they wanted to find out what was behind the spate of cancellations and delays in flights. And lo and behold, it turns out that one of the reasons is that there was a 7% surcharge on spares and aircraft being brought into Nigeria, which had been removed by executive order. Now, the Associate Chairman of the Airline Operators Association and the CEO of Airpeace, Alan Onyema, was the representative in front of the committee, and he said that the 7% surcharge and its crippling impact on operators was behind the entirely avoidable grounding of aircraft due to the difficulty in getting spares out of the customs services grip. He had said in March that Airpeace and other domestic operators would be forced to cut services if this situation continued. And there was a direct result of the actions of the customs service, which had refused to implement the waivers, which had been granted in part in response to the difficulties of COVID-19. Now, that the waiver on import duties came into effect on July the 7th. We haven't heard any reports yet on how beneficial it may be, but we're certainly hoping that the air transport sector in Nigeria is going to be able to get back on track in line with the aviation roadmap, which the Nigerian government is using to promote its great interest in aviation in the country. But there are wider implications for the region, of course. Heavy maintenance has been a bugbear for all the airlines in West Africa for many, many years. We hear people talking about the problems, talking about the capital flight, which amounts to $2 or $3 billion a year, depending on who you talk to. The fact that having a 737 on the ground costs $100,000 a day, but because you can't get the parts to service it, it sticks on the ground. That's a major problem for many of the operators in West Africa. Now, interestingly, COVID has thrown up another opportunity, which could be of very great interest and great value to many of the MROs and the airlines, and that is the unprecedented situation with regard to USM parts. We have Erkki Brakmann, Chief Executive of Sky Select, with us now. Erkki, what do you think?
Yeah, it is an unprecedented situation where the amount of used serviceable material has doubled on the market. And we're seeing especially vendors, stronger vendors, stocking up a lot from other vendors, as well as the surplus from the airlines. So it's definitely a good time for stocking up. That's one thing. But as we all know, cash is the king, and especially now. Therefore, what airlines have also been doing, obviously, is been cutting down their purchasing to bare minimum and buying what they need. So another strategy might be that the airlines really buy as little as possible, but as often as they need it, by leveraging the aftermarket, where they can get the best deals and just not going like blindsided to the single source. So that's I think so where and how you can really leverage the aftermarket as well.
And what would your advice be to airlines who are perhaps less capable, have less understanding and experience in the aftermarket?
I would say that there we really need to look at like two things, or it's a combination of two things. It's the knowledge and the resources, because what we see is like to leverage the aftermarket and find the best deals, it requires more work. And today, because the purchasing is so manual, run by emails, spreadsheets, phone calls, it literally means that you need more people. But however, what we've seen with COVID, the resources or the teams have been cut. So therefore, what really airlines need to do to leverage or get the advantage of the aftermarket is automating and using things like algorithmic purchasing, machine learning to eliminate over 50% of that manual effort, because these deals that you can get from the aftermarket, they don't sit around and wait for you. You really need to act fast, and the only way to do this is through automation to capture that.
And I understand Sky Select could help.
Absolutely. We've over the last 3.5 years, we've built out a platform that can really bring that automation and really help you to get to a next level and basically scale up and scale down the purchasing however you need. So it's really not dependent on how many people you have. So yeah, it's we'll bring automation and help you to get the best deals from the market.
Erkki, thank you very much. There's some very interesting MRO news coming out of India this week as well. We're joined by Neelam Matthews from New Delhi. Neelam, welcome. What's the story?
Now MRO in India has finally arrived. The two major private MROs in India have been joined by a third, AAR Indamer MRO in Nagpur. This is special in a way, Alan, as AAR Corporation is the largest MRO in the world, and the Indian facility is its first outside of the US. Pre-pandemic, India's domestic aviation was the fastest growing, with an MRO business worth $2 billion. This is expected to return by 2023 as we see aviation bouncing back. We spoke to Rajiv Gupta, CEO of the 60 million AAR Indamer facility, on how he views the way ahead. Thanks, Rajiv, for joining us. You must be a happy person with India's largest carrier, Indigo, that has 60% of the business domestic, already rolling in their first aircraft into your facility on the first day. Tell us about it.
Thanks, Neelam. It's nice to be here with you. Yes, it's a very happy day, and we have developed a facility in 30 acres in which we have 6 maintenance lines, and we have developed an environmentally controlled paint hangar, plus a general purpose hangar. We have developed admin buildings, clubhouses, training centers, annex buildings for component repairs. So yes, it's an exciting time for us.
We believe designing the hangar for narrow bodies brings in cost savings and efficiencies because you've planned it for narrow bodies. Now we hear that you are starting C checks for Boeing 737s too. Is that right?
Yes, Neelam, we have developed the complete capability of the Airbus aircraft. We are developing the complete capability for Boeing because Indian Navy has P-8 aircraft, which is nothing else but a Boeing 737-800. This is not an India-centric facility. We are looking at the Gulf, where carriers like Fly Dubai are of a very, very close interest to us. We are looking at the African continent, which has got a lot of Boeings flying there. So yes, Boeing is a large legacy OEM player, and we want to participate in that market.
One cannot help but think of competitive pricing these days. And by looks of it, you will be competing, since it's a global world, with the likes of Ethiopian and Joramco, that's Jordan Airlines.
Competition is always nice and welcome. It brings us innovativeness. It keeps us on our toes. Our partner AAR has done enough checks, hundreds of checks on these aircrafts. They have a large database which will help us increase our efficiency levels and compete at the world level.
And what do you think AAR will bring to India as a value add?
Basically, if you know that all the aircrafts in India are leases and lessors are comfortable working with Western MROs, and which AAR is a large player. So that is the largest thing which they bring to the table. Plus they bring in component repairs, which were not there before. Indamer is the largest MRO in general aviation. We do Bombardier aircraft, Embraer, Gulfstreams. So for us, it's an extension of business. So I think between the two of us, we'll be able to develop a good MRO and give competitiveness, add quality to the world.
And you do helicopters too, right?
Yes, we are the largest MRO for helicopters in India, doing nearly about 34 aircraft today.
We hear in addition will be work not cleared by OEMs in the past in India, like radome maintenance. So it seems like win-win all the way. What else will you be doing that wasn't done in India before?
See, it's basically right now we're starting as a frame facility. We will eventually like to make it a one-stop facility. In coming years, we'd like to develop up the component capability, which AAR has, and they will be teaching us how to do that work. So OEM's acceptance to Western MROs and Western ways of working will be easily adaptable to this facility. Second, we will be looking at in this phase 2 activity, we will develop the engine programs where we would like to develop engines and repair capability in India so that we have a one-stop shop. And that is what will put India firmly on the map as an MRO.
Neelam, thank you. So Chuck, what do you think about that? I mean, India's picking up with its domestic. We've had West Africa picking up, but we're in the depth of the worst crisis ever in the aviation industry. And suddenly we're talking about all the investment that we haven't had for the last 20 years.
Yes, it's not just India and Asia, but we're seeing it in developing markets everywhere. One interesting development is Turkish Technic, who we know have quite an established network around with about 43 stations worldwide now. They have just invested in Malaysia, where they've signed a heads of agreement with Sapura Technics, itself a 145 organization based in Johor. They focus on narrow body types, so it's going to be a very interesting one to watch.
Well, we're going to head now down to Cape Town, home to Africa's 4th largest airport behind Cairo, Johannesburg and Lagos. Over the last decade, the airport has been undergoing a number of changes, with the development team led by then operations manager Mark Maclean, who's now taken over as acting general manager. Robin Rabec began by asking Mark about the redevelopment project and the airport's success.
I think you might be aware that we Africa's most award-winning airport. So for us, you know, the passenger experience is key, but most importantly, we're the 2nd largest in South Africa. So we are a very important part of the network of airports in South Africa. And of course, you might have been aware that we've been growing significantly on the international front. So we act as a key gateway destination for travellers into Cape Town and into the Western Cape as well.
The modifications undertaken at the airport was part of a 2-stage process planned by the Airports Company of South Africa. The concept of new domestic international passenger terminals and the construction of an entirely new runway and taxiway system to accommodate future generations of super large aircraft has since had to be postponed.
Yeah, well, in 2019, Robin, we had tremendous growth and we're reaching the capacity of the airport. We plan to build a new runway, new domestic terminal, new international terminal. But unfortunately, because of the onset of COVID, we've had to shelve a lot of those projects. I prefer to place them on hold, simply because of the downturn in passenger volumes. It's a matter of time before the passenger volumes return. And when they do return, we have every intention to restart some of those important projects again.
Cape Town's award-winning airport had enjoyed continuous growth in passenger movements until when in 2020 the full impact of the COVID pandemic almost collapsed the entire aviation industry.
Prior to COVID, we were processing close to 11 million passengers per annum. So on busy days, up to about 40,000 passengers per day, over 300 flights per day. But and our mix between domestic and international as well was around 75% of our passengers are domestic, about 25% international. That number was changing because we were getting more and more international flights into Cape Town. But after the onset of COVID, the numbers have, of course, dropped significantly. So we process about 150 flights a day now, about half what we did prior to COVID. And our passengers per day is around 10,000 to 15,000 passengers per day, depending on whether there's events and peak and off-peak periods.
The automated thermal screening system, first introduced into service at Cape Town International Airport, is part of a drive by the Airports Company of South Africa to improve methods of efficiency at AXA airports. The system, designed by a team of engineers linked to Mark Maclean's management team, pioneered the en masse body temperature screening process to help monitor persons passing through the airports controlled by AXA. If varying levels of automation is a yardstick for measuring passenger satisfaction, then the management team at Cape Town International has taken further strides to promote passenger satisfaction.
We're promoting more passenger self-service, i.e. more touchless type technology. At the same time, we want to promote the passenger experience. And one of the exciting new developments is the introduction of electronic gates at the immigration departure and arrival area. And that means that South African passport holders are now able to process themselves through immigration without the need to interact with the immigration officer.
Millions of passengers annually rely on an efficient airport to provide a safe and reliable hub for aviation services.
My job is to make sure that we build passenger confidence, that every traveller in and out of Cape Town International feels that firstly we are an airport that promotes their health and safety. Secondly, we are an airport that also, in spite of the restrictions, in spite of the new processes, that we make sure that they have a pleasant travel experience. And then the third part is absolutely working very hard with all our partners in the city, in government, to make sure that we promote this destination, we promote the airport, we promote travel into Cape Town, and we're working very hard to make sure that firstly those who come are excited about coming and returning, but also those who have not yet come are just waiting to travel to us.
And if hospitality is part of the culture of Cape Town, then the city can justifiably claim its entitlement as host of the airport voted to be the 29th most popular airport in the world.
Well, that's certainly an airport looking on the bright side. And I, for one, look forward to getting back there and joining in with the band and all that fun. And that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Chuck, for joining us, and thank you for watching. Join us again in 2 weeks when we have a special report on the airport services company Donata, plus, of course, an update on all that's happening around our regions. So until then, from Chuck and me, keep safe. Goodbye.
How do we achieve ultimate defense interoperability? Inspired by Vision 2030, we are introducing the first of its kind, the World Defense Show. Integrating land, air, sea, satellite, and security.